What was supposed to be a routine lockdown drill turned into a horrifying game of survival when a real intruder entered our school. So, it was a regular Tuesday morning, and we were in the middle of history class when the lockdown alarm went off. At first, we all thought it was just another drill. Our teacher, Ms. Parker, calmly told us to get into the corner of the room, away from the windows and door. We did as we were told, but something felt off. Usually, during drills, the principal or a security officer would come by and check each room, but this time, no one came. Minutes ticked by, and the silence was deafening. My heart started to race when we heard footsteps in the hallway. They weren't the usual, hurried steps of a teacher or staff member. These were slow, deliberate, and heavy. My mind was racing with all sorts of horrible thoughts. We stayed perfectly still, barely daring to breathe. The footsteps stopped right outside our door. I could see the shadow of feet under the door, and then the handle slowly started to turn. Ms. Parker motioned for us to stay quiet, her face pale with fear. The door didn't open, but we could hear someone trying to force it. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps moved away. We stayed hidden, terrified that any movement would bring them back. It wasn't until an hour later, when the police arrived and escorted us out, that we learned there had been an actual intruder in the building. They never found out who it was or how they got in. But I'll never forget the feeling of absolute terror, knowing that someone dangerous was just a few feet away, separated by only a locked door. As we filed out of the building, escorted by police officers, the reality of the situation hit me. We were ushered into the gym, where other students were already gathered. The gym buzzed with whispers and frightened faces. Teachers tried to calm us down, but the tension was palpable. Later, we found out that the intruder had been spotted on security cameras, but their face was obscured by a hood. They had roamed the hallways for nearly an hour before the police arrived. There were reports of lockers being tampered with, and some students found their belongings rummaged through. It was clear this person had been looking for something, or someone. For weeks after, I couldn't shake the fear that gripped me during those moments. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant footstep, sent my heart racing. The school increased security, adding more cameras and hiring additional guards, but the sense of safety was shattered. We all learned a hard lesson that day. Danger can strike when you least expect it, even in the places you feel safest. A mysterious phone call during a school lockdown led us to uncover a horrifying secret that changed everything we knew about our school. It was just another boring afternoon in math class when the lockdown alarm blared through the speakers. We had drills so often that most of us didn't even flinch. Mr. Adams told us to follow the usual procedure: lights off, doors locked, and everyone huddled in the corner. We were whispering and giggling, not taking it seriously at all. Then, Mr. Adams' phone rang. It was strange because no one ever called during the lockdown. He answered it, and his face went pale. He quickly hung up and told us to stay absolutely silent. The mood in the room shifted immediately. We could hear distant sounds, doors slamming, muffled voices, but we had no idea what was going on. The minutes dragged on, and I started to feel this creeping sense of dread. I could tell Mr. Adams was scared, and that freaked me out even more. Suddenly, there was a loud banging on the door, followed by someone jiggling the handle. We all froze, hearts pounding. Mr. Adams whispered for us to stay down and crawled over to his desk, where he had hidden a baseball bat. The banging continued, more frantic now. Just when I thought the door would break, everything went silent again. Hours later, the police arrived and led us out of the building. They found an old janitor in one of the back rooms, tied up and unconscious. Apparently, someone had been using his keys and uniform to move around the school unnoticed. The scariest part? They never caught the person responsible. Now, every time I hear a phone ring during a lockdown, my blood runs cold, and I can't help but think about the unknown caller and the secrets still hidden within our school. We were all pretty shaken up after that. The janitor, Mr. Thompson, was a familiar face to everyone. Seeing him like that, tied up and hurt, made it all the more real. The police questioned him, but he couldn't remember much. He had been attacked from behind, and everything went black after that. The school was on high alert for weeks. They installed more cameras and security measures, but the unease lingered. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said it was a disgruntled ex-student, others whispered about a deranged outsider. But no one really knew. One day, I was talking to my friend Sarah about it, and she mentioned something strange. She said that during the lockdown, she thought she saw someone peeking into her classroom window from the hallway. At first, she brushed it off as her imagination, but now she wasn't so sure. That sent chills down my spine. A few months later, things seemed to calm down, but the memory of that day stayed with us. It made us all more aware, more cautious. We started paying attention to things we used to ignore, the shadows in the hallways, the faces of strangers. And I always wondered about that phone call, who it was, and what they wanted. The fear of the unknown became a part of our daily lives, a constant reminder that safety is never guaranteed. What was supposed to be a routine lockdown drill turned into a silent nightmare when we realized the threat was inside our classroom. It started like any other Friday morning. I was in math class, struggling through algebra, when the lockdown alarm blared. We had drills all the time, so nobody panicked. Our teacher, Ms. Carter, told us to follow the usual procedure. We moved to the corner, turned off the lights, and sat quietly. But something felt off. As we settled in, I noticed a student I didn't recognize. He was sitting at the back of the room, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. I hadn't seen him enter, and he wasn't in our class before. My unease grew when I realized he wasn't following the lockdown protocol. Instead, he stayed seated, staring at his phone. Ms. Carter whispered for him to join us in the corner, but he ignored her. The air was thick with tension. I could feel my heart pounding, and I saw the same fear reflected in my classmates' eyes. We all sat silently, hoping the drill would end soon. Minutes dragged on. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional muffled sounds from outside. Then, the unexpected happened. The strange student stood up and walked to the door. Ms. Carter hissed at him to stop, but he ignored her. He glanced out the window, then turned back to us with a chilling smile. My blood ran cold. He pulled something out of his backpack, a gun. The room erupted into chaos. We all tried to scramble away, but there was nowhere to go. He pointed the gun at Ms. Carter and demanded everyone stay silent and still. Time seemed to slow down. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The minutes felt like hours. He didn't say much, just kept the gun trained on us, watching, waiting. I realized he was listening for something, footsteps, sirens, anything. Finally, we heard the distant sound of police sirens. Relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by fear. The stranger heard it too and moved to the door, peeking out cautiously. He seemed to be deciding whether to run or stay. Just then, the police started clearing the building. They were getting closer, room by room. The tension was unbearable. The stranger backed away from the door, his eyes darting around the room, looking for an escape. In a split-second decision, Ms. Carter lunged at him. The gun went off, the sound deafening in the small room. I screamed, along with everyone else, as the police burst in. They subdued him quickly, but the damage was done. Ms. Carter was injured, but thankfully, it wasn't fatal. The police took the stranger away, and we were all escorted out of the school. The atmosphere outside was surreal, filled with flashing lights, worried parents, and shaken students. In the days that followed, the school was closed while an investigation took place. We learned that the stranger was a former student with a troubled history. He had slipped into the school during the morning rush, blending in unnoticed. Returning to school was hard. Every sound, every stranger, set my nerves on edge. The lockdown drills we used to take for granted were now filled with dread. The fear of the unknown, of what could happen, was always there.